All right, I'm going to start with a quote today. You ready?
Fancy.
I'm ready.
Are we recording? Is this good? Yeah.
Mhm.
Checking. Okay. So this is from the play Fiddler on the Roof. If anybody knows it, it's Tavy the milkman. He says, I know it's no great shame to be poor, but it's no great honor either. I love that quote because it really hits on what so many coaches think about where, yeah, there's nothing wrong with like not feeling like you have to make a lot of money or not desiring a lot of money, but there's no honor in saying that you hate money. And so I really like that. So I started a section. I was telling Amber when that I finished the first quarter of the book today. I mean, I'm talking the first draft, but I finished the first section of the book, and there's 4 sections. And a large part of what I wrote today is basically that the whole section starts with, you do want more money, don't you? And so I actually came across a whole bunch of really fun resources that I kind of want to share at the beginning of this podcast, if that's cool, about money, because I think that it's something that we need to hit on of just getting over a lot of what we grew up with in our relationships with money and stuff. And so one of them was by a Jewish Orthodox rabbi who wrote a book. This is actually a funny story how I found the book, but he wrote a book called Thou Shalt Prosper, 10 Commandments for Making Money. And this is a Jewish Orthodox rabbi. His name is, what's his name? Oh shoot, what's his name? Where is it?
I think I have that book.
Daniel Lapin. Well, and so the foreword to the book is actually by Dave Ramsey. But one of the things that he said in the book is, step 1 in the process of increasing your income is to begin wrapping yourself around these 2 related notions. Number 1, you are in business. And number 2, the occupation of business is moral, noble, and worthy. And like I said, Dave Ramsey, you know, the finance expert, wrote the foreword to this book. And what's interesting, of course, is that Dave Ramsey is not Jewish. He's actually quite religious Christian from what I understand. And so It just shows you that there's so much more in these faiths that crosses over, and there's so much more that connects us than what divides us. And I think it's pretty cool that they did this. But he said in it, and I actually took this whole thing for the book because I think it's just so good. It really paints a good picture. He says, money isn't just physical, it's a spiritual reality. It's spiritual in that it isn't about folded pieces of paper, and it isn't about what those little slips of paper can buy. It's about people and relationships. In a sense, money connects 2 dreamers. Think about that. I personally love to ski. I enjoy hitting the slopes and spending the time with my family, and it doesn't bother me at all to spend money on that particular activity. I imagine it is another person's dream to own and operate a luxury ski resort. He's fulfilled and motivated by providing a great service and outstanding accommodations to skiers. So when I go on vacation, I hand him my money and he hands me my keys and skis. We're both excited about the transaction. We both get what we want, and both our dreams are fulfilled. In that moment, it isn't about money. Money is just what facilitates our relationship. And so I finished that section with just a statement where I just say, and again, this is very rough, but I just say, coaches are good people. And a large part of being a good person is how you conduct your business and the benefits it brings to others. How you earn your living is not anything to be ashamed of. Quite opposite, actually. I think it's pretty noble.
Was this space for commentary? Okay. I did.
Well, what do you think about that? I mean, I do have a lot more that I want to say about this topic. I think that it's worth a deeper dive, but I'd love to hear some of your insights about the idea of, look, business is a noble enterprise, and it is largely an energetic spiritual transaction, as it is a financial one. And to say that you don't like money, or you don't care about money, or you're just doing this because you want to help people, I actually have a section in this book that is quite literally called The Fallacy of the Coach Who Just Wants to Help People with Low Prices.
That's wordy.
First drafts, right? First
So
drafts.
okay, I'm sorry. I don't understand this whole weird world of bookmaking or whatever you bookmakers call it. What's the word for it? Author. Anyway, I've got three thoughts, and I'm going to be concise. Yeah, listening to the podcast, I've realized how not concise I am. So I'm going to keep this concise. I actually
Is this going to be
listened
concise? Are we
Yeah.
going to be concise?
I'm going to be concise.
What when you say the word concise? What
Mhm.
what do you feel? What are you thinking?
Brief but thorough in the explanation, right?
Right.
So
Tell me
what
more. No. I'm kidding.
let me talk to you more
Don't
about
make
how
him
concise I'm going to be, John. I'd like to talk to you at great lengths about my concise nature for explanation. But three things come to mind. Number one, your periods are indistinguishable from your commas on this podcast, so I just have to hold on for 10 seconds to make sure you're not going to say something else. I need you to
Number
fix
two.
that. It's confusing and I don't like it. Number two is that I think people use the fallacy of not wanting money in the same way that people like to brag about their ketogenic diet. I'm better than you. Let me explain to you why. Because I don't like money. Look at me.
Have you seen?
Right.
I actually saw it today. The Google search trends chart for the keto diet.
No,
It has fallen off a cliff.
Good.
it's about time.
Nobody cares about it anymore because everybody realized that
It's trash.
it was just trash.
It's gone through
all
its 190-day fitness cycle.
Yeah.
Like collagen will soon, and like coconut oil did, and what was the last one? Oh, CMOS. CMOS is falling off
thing.
terribly now. In
That
any
was a
case,
thing. Yeah.
and then the third thing, my third thought, Jonathan, is that people are scared of admitting that they need something that they need, and I don't know why that is. Like we're just deathly afraid that we'll be heavily judged for needing something that everybody needs. You can't operate well in this life, particularly on this continent, without money. Like it's
Right.
it's not bad. And I feel like we all, like all three of us, have grown up in the same sort of money environment where we came into our businesses with some predisposed hangups about people who have money and what they're
Sure.
like.
And what they're like and what it means and what it says about them.
I did.
Let me tell you the story of Ashley. So section continues where I talk about somebody named Ashley. And I want to hear both of your thoughts on this, or one of your thoughts, or whoever has thoughts or whatever. I'd love to hear some thoughts on this, because this section I feel like really hits on something important, but I don't think I wrote it particularly well. It was kind of like
That you need
it was
help.
kind of
Is what you're
yeah,
looking
it was
for.
kind of like the end of like a long writing session, and I'd been interrupted so many times by people who had, because I live in like a small town here in Mexico, so like every 5 minutes like somebody's going by who I like kind of know but kind of don't know, but nobody really has anything to do, so everybody stops to talk, and it's beautiful, and that's why I love living here, but not when I'm trying to write a goddamn book, people. Okay, so Ashley's situation is this: her parents were first generation immigrants, and they struggled to make a life in the United States. Like they worked in factories while raising a family, right? Like a very traditional first generation immigrant family. They came here with nothing. They worked laborer type jobs and they struggled. And so money was an ongoing stress throughout her childhood, right? And she never, as a result, associated herself as somebody who had money or desired money, because by all accounts, she had a pretty happy childhood. Like her parents were loving. Yeah, they were hardworking. They didn't have a lot, but they didn't need more than they had. And so she didn't have designer clothes or whatever, but she never associated with herself as somebody who had money or desired it. And so when she got into coaching, she found herself repeating phrases like, I just want to help people. And she even went so far. So when we met, it was this, I saw her post this in one of the groups, and I responded to it, and then we had some conversations. And she was in these online communities. This was a Facebook group. I say online communities in the book because I don't want it to like basically blow out if Facebook groups go away. And for this, so I say online communities, but it was a Facebook group. And she kept repeating phrases and answering stuff like, oh, I just want to help people. Like, that's why I charge little amounts, or I just want to help people. I don't care about the money. And of course, that was always met with a lot of like likes and hearts and positive feedback in that group, but in her heart, she knew that she was lying. And the truth now, because we have the benefit of hindsight, because this story has already happened and already played out, the truth was that Ashley had just never been good at making money, and she gave up. And posting in these groups made her feel better, but they didn't solve the problem. They actually made the problem worse. And I say that, well, no, I won't go to that section, but when you do something consistently for a while, you begin to feel different, and you begin to change. And so because Ashley kept posting in these groups all of these things about how she like it was negative. The words that she said have so much power. Like, we become what we do, we become what we speak of the most. She kept speaking about how she didn't care about money, so much so that she tricked herself into becoming somebody who opposed the very idea of making the business she was so passionate about work for her. And the end of the story, and it's not a story with a happy ending, is that she left coaching. She still claimed that it was her passion, but she said, I can't make it work, and she left coaching. Period.
It's a bunch of thoughts
Thank you for
there.
that period, Jonathan.
It goes to show that just because something has a lot of likes doesn't mean it's good. Right. So like, don't let stuff like that like influence the way that you think critically. Right. It's a security blanket, right? Like to be able to say, well, I do this just because I want to help people. It's a security blanket, because it's funny. I find coaches have
Talk slower. Security blanket. I'm writing the book as you're talking.
Oh, it's a security blanket. So coaches have this interesting thing where we have massive egos, but also are like tiny, terrified children that like need love and acceptance, and we can't give it to ourselves. And so we seek validation, right? And so I think that's what happens when people say something like that, right? Is like, well, you know, I'm just in it to help people. Well, if you're only in it to help people, then you don't have to take ownership of actually what you do, because you're doing it out of kindness versus like, hey, I'm good at what I do. And you have to own that when you were saying, I take a lot of money for it. And that's very scary, and it invites judgment. So I could definitely see that playing a part. And then for her, like, my parents grew up, you know, and you know, they had outhouses growing up, you know, they didn't have like actual, you know, bathrooms. Right. And so what does it mean if I make
Personally,
more money
I like
now?
to pee outside. I'm just saying.
Sure. This is why I
Especially when
don't
it's
camp.
windy.
I will go camping and get dirty and starve and whatever. I will not pee outside. That is not happening.
It's a very different experience for you.
Yeah, that's not
For
happening.
us, it's like target practice.
Yeah. But what does
Yeah.
it mean for her? If she all of a sudden starts making more than what she had growing up, does that reflect on how she feels about how she grew up, you know, and does her family see it that way? So I could definitely see, like, if I'm doing better now, is that a negative reflection on the way that I grew up? So yeah, there's a lot of weird relationship stuff with money that.
Keep talking. I'm typing this all out.
That's all I have.
Oh man, this is so good. Okay,
Ren, go.
your job
Yeah,
to contribute to the book.
I'll jump in because I had a lot of these same situations. Ironic that the house that I grew up in, which is the house that my mother grew up in, also there was an outhouse. And my mom used to say some wild shit too. Like, yeah, I had to go out there to the outhouse, and you know, Daddy kept the king snake in there because it kept the rats out of it. And I'm like, okay, Mom.
And you had to pick a switch bigger than your thumb if you got in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. All of the whole nine. And you know, and I'm older than the core of this group. I'm the aged out person here. 12, 13 years older than Jonathan. So, and he's old. So I understand that. And what I heard in my household about people who had money was that they got it from it was ill-gotten gains, right? There was a church across the street, and the minister drove a Lincoln. And if you're in the South and you're a black minister and you drove a Lincoln in the 80s, you were robbing people. Like that's the only, you know, the only explanation.
So hold up. I need to hear this story. Was he? Because now you probably know whether he was or not.
Right.
And,
No, he
what was
wasn't.
his name? Because I want to look up
He was
newspapers from that period of time.
Bishop R.L. Wise, W-I-S-E, which
How do
also
you remember
speaks
that?
to some shadiness. But in any case, so the language that I heard in my house, mind you, I'm being raised by a middle class, family. Like my mother's a registered
Oh, he
nurse
passed
for
away
30
in
years.
2021. That's really sad.
Yeah, he passed away. I mean, he's old. I'm old. So anything that happened in my childhood, if there were adults involved, Jonathan, they're probably dead.
Oh,
So
He had a
just-
legendary mustache, this guy,
Yeah,
though.
yeah, let's just throw that out there.
mustache.
If I talk about adults from when I was a child, they're dead now. We're talking about dead people.
that's so sad.
Yeah, well,
2021. He died 2 years ago, dude.
well, I mean, but
Wasn't
he was
that
very
long ago.
old. He's probably like 165 by 2021. In any case, so the language that I heard in my house was always associated with if people had material possessions. My mother would she would say things like, "Oh, look at Donald driving that car. He always keeps it so clean. He cares more about that car than he does his family." Right? There was always some, and this wasn't a woman that was struggling financially per se. College educated, professional degree, et cetera, but it was all sort of a result of what she heard in her home and the language that was spoken then. So
Right.
even though she was financially better off, mentally the psychology of money for her remained the same regardless of the amount of money she actually had. And I can't imagine how stressful that might be. I carried that into my business in becoming a trainer. When I started off, for God's sakes, I was charging people $250 a month for 12 in-person sessions, right? Never doing the math, right? Do the math on that.
I don't do public math, but I'll do a calculator.
Do it quietly and come back to it.
250 divided by 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're making $20.83. Well, actually $20.83 repeated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Three,
and I was
three,
driving
with
to
the little
people's
line on
homes.
top. Yeah.
Hadn't calculated gas, my time, none of that. I'm driving to people's home. I was an in-home trainer. And then when I went online 2 years before OTA, I was charging $65 a month for a month of online training, asking clients to do 3 exercise routines per week. It was on demand, so it wasn't, one-to-one virtual, but still, if you divide 12 into $65, you're at like $4.33. And
right.
Doing the math of that, I shocked myself into not being such a dumbass. I was like, okay, this is stupid. Like $4.30, like this is okay. It felt right. It felt like the right number to say, but this is fucking dumb. Like I can't continue to do this. And luckily I raised my prices a little bit and then OTA came along. But, I think we see as mentors, we see this distress with our clients.
So that's what I want to hear from you all is talk to me about the distress from the clients.
Yeah, the coaches, right? Like, Amber, how many conversations have you had where somebody, I want to talk to you about pricing today because I just can't figure this out, Amber. What should I charge? Like, how does that go for you?
I just had a student that I had a call with today and she raised her prices again. That was like one of the first things we did. I was like, girl, like you were lucky you live in another country because I would slap you because you charge so cheaply and it drives me insane because she's so freaking good. And I know she over delivers because we all over deliver, right? Because like there's not a single coach I have ever met that wouldn't like crawl over broken glass to help a client. Right. And so like you're already undercharging. And on top of that, you're over delivering, like you're making peanuts, my friend. And it drives me insane. But yeah, we hear it all the time, but they use I just want to help people. It's an excuse. If you want to help people, you would be financially compensated well enough so you have the energy to like actually help people and have the time and the space, emotional, spiritual, whatever, to actually do something with it.
So let me read you the fallacy of the coach who just wants
Was
to
that a
help
good
people
segue
with
for
their
you? I
business.
tried really hard.
It was great. You did great. Good wing woman.
What's the title
For the
again?
record, I am
What's
a
that
terrible
working?
wing woman.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I believe that.
I'll tell you
actually.
stories one day.
I kind of believe that too, actually.
Yeah,
I don't need stories. I actually prefer a lot of the time. I have a really good imagination for nonsense. And so
No.
I actually, a lot of the time with this kind of thing, I very much prefer making it up in my head than actually knowing the reality of the situation, because it's way funnier. And the more and more that I make it up in my head, the more real it seems to me, which also increases my enjoyment over the subject. So I don't actually want to know how you actually are in the stories, you as a wingman. I'm just going to pretend that you're awful in like the funniest ways ever.
Yeah, it's true.
Like you're like the person who, once one of your girlfriends is finally with a guy that she really likes at the bar, you're like, I have to pee, let's go pee, and you'll just like drag her away from this guy. You're like that.
No,
Okay.
I had a guy that I told him to go hit on a girl, and she was a lesbian, and that was entirely
Nice.
fun. Yeah, they had a good drunk time though,
because she was eyeing down both of you together.
No, definitely not. He was really
like,
drunk, and it was purely for my entertainment to see what would happen. So
oh yeah, no, but that's being a terrible friend. That's not being a terrible wingman.
that's how I wingman. My entertainment.
That's what I do too. Yeah. No, I would have done the same thing. Okay, Lynn. The fallacy fallacy of the coach who just wants to help people with low prices. Got all that?
And that's the end of the chapter, correct?
I do have chapters shorter than that title.
That's the whole chapter, right? There's enough words there for one complete chapter.
The chapter is super short. I actually drew a picture. I think I'm going to include it actually in the 5 Reps Friday newsletter that I'm going to write after this podcast, which for those of you who don't know, 5 Reps Friday is the newsletter that I write for fitness and health professionals. It includes 2 business nuggets, 2 coaching cues, and a quote to ponder. I send it every Friday. You can get it at 5repsfriday.com. It is, by my account, the most popular newsletter in the world for people who work in fitness. There's about 65,000 people who get it. So 5repsfriday.com. Anyway, I think I'm going to include this picture on it. But it shows the spiral, which is low prices. And then there's like an arrow, like a circular arrow, which goes no time or resources to solve clients' problems. And then another arrow that says unsatisfied clients. And then another arrow that says low retention and no referrals. And then another arrow that says no new clients. And then the arrow goes back to low prices. And the section reads, a client hires you to solve a problem. It doesn't matter how much they pay. Your job and what they judge you on is whether you help them. Low prices limit your abilities to help clients and cause a negative spiral. If you want to help people, you charge what you're worth. And I have a different section which basically just says getting a customer, getting a client is the hard part. To me, there's only 3 differences between cheap and expensive clients. The cheap one's less committed. You have less time and fewer resources to help the cheap one, and you make less money from the cheap one. Getting a customer is the hard part, but getting a cheap customer is often just as hard as getting a customer who pays you a lot. The hard part isn't getting somebody to pay you. It's convincing that person that right now is the time to make the change that they've been wanting to make for a long time. Period.
So you said something interesting, right? Well, charge what you're worth, but that's the problem. Is coaches don't understand what they're worth, or they don't. That's why they charge crap prices, is because they don't feel like they are worth more than $75 a month or whatever it is. And so I think that's one of the big things we have to fix, is how do we get them to realize that they're very much needed and very much worth more than they're charging.
Okay, so what do I write in the book? If you want to help people charge what you're worth, what do I change that to?
Well, I think that's a side note, is you need therapy. So that way, so you can get to the part where you feel like you're worth it, right? It's a side note. What you're saying is valid. It's true, but they don't understand what they're worth.
And if you don't think you're worth much,
go to
therapy.
I mean, to be fair, we should all be in therapy.
Right. Absolutely. Charge what you're worth. Here's a list of 2 therapists in every state where this book is sold.
Hey, there's a niche, an online therapist that helps online trainers.
Hey,
it's actually not a bad, no, like
that's brilliant.
An
Damn.
online therapist who helps online trainers is not a good niche. That's a shitty idea.
Why
But
not? Why not?
Shut up.
you hit on something good. An online therapist that helps coaches and service professionals get over their fear of money and charge what they're worth, I think is actually a great niche, because they can do what a lot of therapists can't do, which is they can make price propositions and value propositions based off of how much more money you're going to make as a result of working with them. You could say, hey, I will guarantee you that as a result of working with me, you will feel so much more confident in yourself and in your coaching practice that you will begin to charge $100 more per hour for your time. So pay me. It's pretty convincing. Online trainers, nah. Because online trainers just don't have any money. I think
Says
about
the man that owns.
well, they don't. I mean, it's a serious it's a serious problem with our business. Like, it's just I think about, maybe this is just me and like being egocentric, but I've spoken to friends about this as well in other industries, and they agree because they've watched kind of what I've done. I think about the amount and the quality of materials that we've produced over the years, Amber, and just how good this stuff is, both our free and our paid products. And while the number of customers and the number of revenue and everything that we've generated is certainly impressive, imagine if we did this for like chiropractors or dentists. Imagine if we did this for industries that a lot of people going into them simply just have more money to begin with, or they go into that industry with a level of seriousness that unfortunately a lot of people entering the fitness industry don't enter into the fitness industry with, or they enter into their industry with simply just more sunk cost in terms of time and money into education. And as a result, they're going to put way more into actually doing something with the materials they do and not giving up as easily. And I mean, I think about that. I don't think that it's going to change anything that I do, because I love the fitness industry, and I think that fitness and health professionals are preventative care. Like, I would much rather work with preventative care practitioners than reactive care practitioners. Not that there isn't a place for both. I think that we would need a lot. I think that we would need fewer reactive care practitioners if preventative care was more present. But I also understand the psychology of the thing. It comes down to the famous thought experiment by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. I can't remember which one of his books he gives this in. It might have been Anti-Fragile. But his thought experiment was that what year was 9/11? Was it 2000?
2001.
2001. So he says that if on September 10th, 2001, somebody were to go into the International Airline Commission and say, there is a massive tragedy approaching tomorrow. Here's what we need to do in order to avoid it happening in the first place. We need to shut the doors and put all these things in place to stop hijacking the planes. He would have been laughed out of there. But he actually would have stopped what many agree is one of the greater catastrophes in the modern United States. You could argue that based off of the pure stats of the matter, but it doesn't really matter whether you argue that or not. That's the general sentiment of it. At the same time, and on the same token, the reactive people, the firefighters, the first responders who helped after the tragedy happened were justifiably, rightfully admired, respected, rewarded, and they should be. But they wouldn't have been necessary if you listened to the first guy. And that thought experiment, while extreme, just highlights the difference between preventative versus reactive care. The truth of the matter is, personal trainers, people who work in health and fitness, nutrition coaches, help people avoid ever needing. I'll say that a different way. Preventative care practitioners, health practitioners, personal trainers, nutrition coaches increase the odds that you will never need to go see certain types of doctors and medical professionals and whatnot. But there isn't a pain yet. And if there isn't a pain with a thing, we don't often take action on the thing. But it would be impossible for you to argue that money is better spent avoiding problems than reacting to them after they've already happened. That's just not the human condition. So I understand the psychology of it. And that's why personal trainers, nutrition coaches, habit coaches, health coaches, that's why a lot of them struggle much more than, call it chiropractors, physiotherapists, a lot of medical professionals. Not to say there isn't a need for both of them, not to say they're both not really important, but it's unfortunately a part of the human condition that we wait until problems get bad enough that there is a pain to do something about it. Whereas the best way to spend your money and time is to make sure you never get sick. Mm-hmm. Or increase your odds of not getting sick. I remember, this is going to be like, just because anything anybody ever says related to COVID is controversial, so this is going to be a controversial thing that I'm going to say in the podcast, even though I don't think that it is. I've never given my opinion on COVID. I just don't give a shit enough to like fight with people on the internet about it. So this has nothing to do with my opinion. But I remember very, very early on in 2020, I remember Fauci saying something that was present. And he called it very early on. He said, I am in right now an impossible to win situation. Because if we don't do anything, there's a very good chance that a lot of people are going to suffer and die. And I'm going to be at fault. If I do something and it doesn't work, then a lot of people are going to die and I'm going to be at fault. If I do something and it does work, then people aren't going to suffer that much and they're not going to die. And people will say, holy shit, you overreacted. What the hell are you doing? You're shutting down the economy. He called it. He called it in early 2020. He said, there's no way that I'm going to win this. And of course, looking back, you might argue, depending on what side of the spectrum you are, you might argue that any of those things happened in reality. I think probably in different parts of the world, there was a combination of those things that happened. But what he highlighted there is, in advance of something, when you're trying to avoid that thing happening, all that you can do is you can increase the odds. It doesn't mean that it won't happen. And but at the same time, the people who reacted after COVID got really bad, call it the pharmaceutical companies, a lot of people who have built massive media platforms on both sides of the argument, you know, like if you had a strong opinion and you were willing to voice it, you could have built up an audience very quickly during COVID. I know marketing companies that didn't give two fucks about COVID, that built huge product companies purely understanding that people were so one-sided, people were so intense in their beliefs that they would just spend money. Like there was a coffee company, there was a whole bunch of coffee companies like this that all had names like Patriot Coffee. And it was their entire, I mean, coffee is a commoditized product with a high profit margin. If you could figure out how to sell coffee at a higher price than somebody else, your profit margins are stupid. You're getting the product from the same place as everybody else. It's not any better. And so it's really a marketing branding experiment, largely, with coffee. Now, if you're a coffee aficionado, then you understand that there's a ranking system with coffee, and depending on different parts of the world, different coffee tastes different. If you really want to get into this, there's a great book called The Monk of Mocha by Dave Eggers. I recommend it.
What?
It's a great book. The Monk of Mocha. Mohka, Dave Eggers. Eggers is one of my favorite authors. But yeah, he wrote a book about this. Anyway, all these companies came out that were selling like names like Patriot Coffee. And their entire platforms was basically like, fight the government, like screw COVID, non sequitur, non sequitur, non sequitur, buy our coffee. Like, it was just, you looked at it and you were just like, this was so dumb. But the amount of people, there was a gym owner in the States who got famous because he refused to, I don't remember what his name was or anything about him, but he got famous. He built up a massive platform because he refused to close his doors. And, you know, the cops would be there and he let people go in and train, and he opened up the back door and he bolted the front door and he got arrested 4 times and all that. And he built a massive social media platform. Every time he would just live stream like him getting arrested. And then he came out with some bullshit coffee company off of his platform. And so there's whatever side of this that you stand on, and I don't really care what that is, you know, one love and all that hippy dippy stuff. But like the reality of it is, the people who reacted after the problem got bad, after there was pain, the pain either being we've gotten really sick, or the pain being what the hell's the big deal? Why are you making us suffer so much? After that pain happened, people profited most. And the people who are trying to avoid that pain from happening in the first place were in impossible to win situations and scenarios. And I say all of this only to say that I understand it. I get how the game works. And I still want to work with preventative care because I just think it's so much more important. But Amber, holy crap, you and me could be making more money. Holy shit. We could take, none of these industries have anything close to as good at what we build. We could just go at dentists, at chiropractors, at physios. We could go to a lot of the basically high cost medical care, like the luxury medical care communities. I mean, now it's a lot of stem cell stuff, but certainly like the plastic surgeon community. We charge $20,000, $30,000 for the Online Trainer Academy. Easy. Easy. And but I just think this is the arena that I want to play in still. So when that's why you know, I know that trainers generally don't have a lot of money, despite all of our best efforts.
So talking like about the morality of money, right? So as tie this together a little bit, if there is somebody out there that can come up with something like Patriot Coffee and make a stupid amount of money for something that probably don't necessarily deserve, you deserve to make enough money for all of the education that you've bought and continue to buy because you're never really ready to launch, and all of the people that you've helped for free or for dirt cheap and all of that stuff, all of the effort, the blood, sweat, tears, and anxiety. You can charge a little more, I'd say.
Yeah, it's important. It's important to realize that what you're doing is valid. For all the people that love to help people, we sure to get really squeamish about talking about helping people in the coaching industry, particularly in fitness coaching. One repeating message that I get from the coaches that we are mentoring is when it's time to launch, right? Particularly when it's the first time to launch. And there's a sort of sense of them not wanting to annoy people. It's like they internally already realize that they are the preventative guy who's got to go to the airlines and tell them that there is this sinister plot that's going to take place tomorrow on the 11th, and they don't want to take the heat for it. They know it, but they don't want to take the heat for it. They don't want to be exposed, and they'll say things to me like, well, I don't want to annoy all my friends who are on social media that follow me, or I don't want to post too much. I don't want people to see me, asking for money or asking for sales. And I'm like, bro, like this isn't Melaleuca. Like this isn't.
Have you seen the crap that's out there?
Right,
Vast majority of stuff that's posted is garbage and means
unabashed
nothing.
about promoting it. I mean, people.
What's Melaleuca? What's Melaleuca?
Melaleuca. It's like the predecessor to similar to Amway.
Okay.
Sell brushes and shampoos and shit like that. MLM. It's multi-level marketing.
I heard the funniest thing the other day. It was like people who like are in multi-level marketing don't actually call themselves like no, it's not multi-level marketing. It's what do they call themselves?
They're boss babes.
Yeah, we're boss babes or like whatever, right? It was just the funniest thing. It was such a good example of a reframe. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with multi-level marketing. I think it's a perfectly valid structure. I think there's something wrong with if it's shaped like a pyramid. But I don't think, a lot of multi-level marketing structures, I think, are smart business structures. But I just think it's funny if you work, but let me put it this way. If you work in an industry that you feel like you have to reframe the title of that industry in order to justify to yourself that you're working in that industry, you might want to reconsider what you're doing.
I was training a kid. I say kid, he was probably 30. I don't know. I was training a kid when I was doing insurance sales, right? Because I was a corporate sales trainer. And I said, hey, you got any business cards? He's like, yeah, let me grab a business card. He got his business card and it said benefits representative. I said, what the hell is this?
Representative.
What is this card for? It had our company logo on it. He's like, yeah, that's what I tell people when they ask what I do. I'm benefits representative. I was like, bro, you're an insurance salesman. You sell insurance. This is what you do. You don't represent any benefits. You're not with the Navy. Like you don't have a deceased soldier that you need to present something to their family. Like, dude, you sell insurance. Put life insurance on your fucking card. Because you're just confusing the shit out of everybody you get that card to is never going to call you because they have no idea what you do. And I agree with that, Jonathan. If you got to reframe it,
benefits what?
Benefits representative. Like whose
benefits do you? 1 second. I just got to call up Zach. He's my benefits representative. Zach.
Like, bro, but to your point, if you have to reframe it, don't do it. And there's nothing wrong with multi-level marketing. There's nothing wrong with any industry where you are inviting people to purchase something that they want or need. And when they make the purchase, they get exactly what they purchased.
But there's more to it than that. MLM is actually really predatory.
Yeah, absolutely. But if they want something, it's been explained properly, you have it and they buy it and they get what they want. On the consumer end, that's just business. Now on the representative end, if you're selling, they tell you sell 5 things and enroll 2 more people into the business and you make $1 million and you don't.
Well, that's what MLMs are. I mean, yeah, the whole it's network marketing or whatever, which is super predatory. There's a really great podcast about it, and I'll get off my soapbox because that's a hot button topic.
I like it.
I like
that you're annoyed by it.
I am very annoyed.
Because my favorite Amber.
It has destroyed so many people that I know personally, and in like every mom group, it gets shut down fast. MLMs are not tolerated at all because they are just that bad. And you always hear, oh, well, this one's not so bad. No, if you have to recruit people in order to, no, you can sell things. If you buy their product and you love it and you believe in it and you sell it, that's fine. But if you have to recruit other people into it I don't like that. Sorry.
It's all right.
See how many hate messages I get, but mine's good. I'm gonna
go off.
Like
one of the benefits of not having many listeners to a podcast is that you don't get very many hate
that's often why I don't like to talk, is because I have a lot of things to say that probably aren't going to sit well. So
that's right. I love it. Bring the controversy.
Let's pick one who ends topics, because Ren actually has topics. Amber, Ren, you guys want to choose one?
I put him in the wrong place.
Yeah, no, you got topics. I don't have the document open again. I lost it, but what's okay? You want me to pick it?
I use the old document.
What's bro, it's just water.
Yeah, so this, as a matter of fact, this works really well in the topic. Ironically, so I'm in the convenience mart in Charlotte, North Carolina.
I like going to convenience marts.
They make me happy, John, because there's so many things in there that are, they're convenient, quite frankly. So I'm in a convenience mart. I've got an appointment with the Volkswagen dealership. I drive a luxurious Volkswagen Jetta because I'm sitting in the lap of luxury because I'm so well funded by the OTA.
I mean, as funny as that is that you brought that up, that is probably the first ever personal detail about your life you have ever brought up in give or take 150 podcast episodes I've recorded.
The Jetta, and there won't be a second one for another 150 podcasts. So I'm getting the Jetta service. There's some kind of recall, some light or something, and I get this water from the convenience mart. It's the only water that's in an aluminum can, right? So I'm very conscientious about drinking bottled water because I did a deep dive on water once as a fitness professional, and the plastic and blah blah blah, and I don't want the plastic in. So
single use plastic sucks.
Single use plastic. I'm not big on it. It's not quite the soapbox that MLM is for Amber. I mean, she was really angry there for a second.
She was really intense. Yeah,
it's not my favorite thing. And also, I know that this stuff is stored in hot warehouses. Sometimes I'm in the South, so sometimes the plastic can leak into the actual water. So I get this aluminum can, and it's called the water. I just threw the bottle away the other day. I thought we talked about this sooner. But the water is, I can't remember the specific name of the water, but it'll come to me.
Path.
What'd you say?
Path.
Yeah, Path water.
Yeah, I'm on the website.
Thank you. Drink Path is a website. So I get this bottle of water, and the first thing I notice is that it's expensive. It's like $3.50 for a bottle of water. But the second thing I notice is that it's refillable. And I say, well, I'm a trainer. I work out a lot. I like water bottles. I could use this bottle over and over. And I have been using it. I probably use it about 5 times, and you can hand wash it. The second thing I noticed is that it's some kind of special water, like some kind of still water or something like that. It's got electrolytes in it and vitamins and minerals, right? And I know that water should have electrolytes in it because it's hard for you to hydrate yourself if there's not some sodium aspect, some electrolytes. Just
listen to the I'm on the website right now, and the copy is so good but so cringe. First of all,
fluff.
The name of the product is Still, and Still is not capitalized on purpose. So it's not Still, it's Still.
That's right. You got to chill, bro.
Ultra purified, reverse osmosis filtered water is packaged in a naturally beautiful, affordable vessel that is truly kind to the earth.
A vessel.
They use Chat GPT to write that.
There is so much bullshit in that
How dare you, Amber? How dare you both? So it's a beautiful vessel for the earth, damn it. And I'm bought in. From the time I see this bottle, it's love at first sip.
Our unique aluminum bottle is produced with industry-leading thicker walls for superior durability. Bullshit.
Love at first sip was really good, though. You should send that to them, Ren. Love at first sip. That was fantastic.
First sip. That's good.
I like those walls to be thick, baby. I think you know what I'm saying. If it's going to be wet, I want it to be thick and wet, baby. Thick with 2 C's. So I'm bought in. I'm the dumbass target market for this bottle of water. I am. I was born and bred to overspend on this water. And you know what I learned through my own experience about pricing is I didn't give a shit how much it costed.
Right.
It connected to me emotionally. Number one, from saving the earth. Number two, I like to know that my water is reverse osmosis. I really don't care, but they use some sciencey words. I'm all for that shit. The description of the water bottle, the fact that I can refill it, and the fact that it was just conveniently there, I bought in. And I think our businesses are a lot like that. We don't trust that there's someone who would, we don't trust that there's enough people out there that consider us to be serving the need that's not served otherwise. And just the way they go for it on this stupid ass water, I was so impressed by how cheesy, dumb, overly articulated, all, you know, a vessel, our thick walls, and like, I mean, like,
I think it just goes to show you that if you appeal to something deeper than just the product, if
the values,
right,
to somebody's values. I think about a bunch of people I know. One of the guys has become a pretty good friend. They run a company called Pella, and they make phone cases, and they've sold over $100 million worth of phone cases. And the phone cases are made of flax seeds, and they compost.
Wow.
These phone cases are like $47 US each. And their margin they do not cost that much to manufacture. Like, their margins are just stupidly high. And their marketing is just world-class, truly world-class. You go to the website and it's just like, this is the best e-commerce website you ever see. You know, like their upsell is not based off of, you'll save X amount of dollars if you do this. It's like, hey, so far you've saved this many plastic bags from going into the ocean.
There you go.
You can save that many plastic bags by adding a second phone case. And by the way, you can do that for only $10. And it's kind of bullshit, because you wouldn't otherwise have bought that phone case. And so you're actually not saving more plastic bags from going in the ocean, because if you would have never bought anything, then those bags would have never been in the ocean. But it just, it shows you how valuable it is to appeal to somebody's deeper values. And the amount of people that I know that own that phone case is actually quite surprising. Like people who I know in Toronto all over the place, who I know don't have that much money. And yet they bought I mean, in Canadian dollars, we're talking like a $60, $65 phone case for their phone, whereas you could go on Amazon or whatever it is and get a regular one, like a regular plastic one for, you know, $10, $8. And the regular plastic one, yes, is plastic, but it's not single-use plastic. And any environmental expert, recycling expert will tell you the problem is single-use plastics. Mm-hmm. It's not plastic, it's single-use plastic. And so, you know, and I think this company is amazing. I think Pella's amazing. And they came out with a desktop composter called Lomi as well, Lomi. And Matt, who's the CEO, jumped on the phone with me before they came out with it and basically walked me through it. And because we compost a lot at home, like we have like a huge backyard composter, and so it's something I'm passionate about. One of the best ways to actually reduce greenhouse gases is if everybody just does a better job with food waste at their own home. Something like 70% of landfills is actually compostable food waste that's thrown away in your garbage. And so if you compost it, of course, that's not going in the landfills, and one person is going to make a difference, but a lot of people will. And so, you know, we compost all of our food waste and stuff like that at home in a big backyard composter, but not everybody has a backyard or wants to have a backyard composter. So this is one that sits on your desk and composts in 24 hours. Anyway, great company, but same type of idea. And like, it's wild how much more you can charge and how much less price sensitivity customers have when you can appeal to something deeper, like that Path company. I mean, that Path water bottle company, like that's bad. Like that copy is cool. Like it is not It is just, it's so clearly nonsense.
I
But
love it.
I mean, I guess it works. I don't know. I don't know anything other than just looking at that website. It seems like they're doing pretty good, but
So I used to work for used to manage the Sunglass Hut locally for several years, and the parent company Luxottica, makes all of the sunglasses
God.
minus Maui Jim, right? And so
makes every sunglass ever. Yeah.
yes, and so the margin is stupid,
Oh, they're
and they
ridiculous.
own every brand, and so
Uh-huh.
everything from like the really low end stuff that's like $50 to Prada that's several $100s, right? It's the same freaking people. They get made in the same freaking,
Yeah.
manufacturing plant, right? It speaks, but the reason they can charge more is it speaks to values and how they want to appear, right? So if you can speak to kind of both of those things, what does this say about me by buying this thing?
Yeah.
And then does it sync with the way that I live and believe? So that's where most coaches kind of go off the rails, is they don't really touch on any of that stuff.
So we'll leave it at this, that we're talking about two different things here. One is like values based off of environmental, doing good for the earth. And I guess that kind of goes into status and how we want others to perceive us. But I think there's also some deeper stuff there. But the other piece of it is what you hit on, Amber, which is not an environmental thing, which is a purely status thing. And there's a term for that. Those are called Veblen goods, Veblan. And a Veblen good is a term to describe something that's value is derived from how expensive it is. And there's lots of really interesting examples. Rolex watches, sunglasses are great examples of Veblen goods. But then, I mean, you even think of cars, and part of a Veblen good has to be the uselessness or the lack of added use of the actual added money. It's not driving an expensive car that makes people want an expensive car, because actually, if you wanted the most expensive car, what you do is you buy an 18-wheeler.
Right.
But 18-wheelers function, right? Like they have a real function. They have a real utility. What you actually want to buy, if you want to increase status, if you want to take advantage of this Veblen good phenomenon, because you feel like that's something that you want to self-represent with, is you actually want to buy a really expensive car with very little utility. I.e. a Lamborghini or Ferrari or something like that, where it's irrelevant how well this thing performs. You're driving the same speed as that idiot who's got, the 2005 Honda Accord on the highway. And
right beside me.
Well, and it's
my
not
Jetta.
just pricing, right? But even like with the phone case, it's more expensive than a lot of phone cases, but it's what it says about them. It says I'm someone who cares about the environment and, being, carbon footprint neutral, blah, 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 so how they want to be perceived, whether, because it's expensive and status, or because they want to feel better about how people see them and not wasting stuff.
Well, something wet in a vessel with some thick walls, baby.
You
I
can't
can dig
with that.
Well, thanks for listening to our podcast today, everybody. And I hope you and yours have a great rest of your day and a great few days. Talk soon.